right. When everybody's ready. All right, welcome. I asked ChatGPT one thing for this thing, that was create me a title for it. It was this one. I was okay with it. I liked it, so I used it. I also asked to generate an image for my slide, but it was actually a phone using a USB-A port, which connects to via gRPC to a server. I did not use that one. Was totally wrong. Who am I? I'm Kris. I started as a Java developer, working on an open source CMS system. Also did some web service stuff for Bolero, which is part of KBC. Then I became a PHP developer for Kunstmaan, which is the company I worked for then. Then I switched to an Android developer, did some projects on it, and then I discovered Flutter actually in 2018, and I really liked it. I of course tried React Native and then all the other things that were passed already, but I was sure Flutter is going to be it, and there was no meetup, so I guess I said, okay, let's create one. And nowadays I'm a Flutter developer for InvestSuite, which is a company that creates software for banks. So in this case, a mobile application or services for that mobile application. And in my spare time, I created the IJsradar. It's a mobile application where you can see where the ice cream trucks are at that moment. An ID and just start coding. I'll give a talk about gRPC. So what is gRPC? It tries to be a cross-platform, open source, high performance, and to do calls on a server from a client or vice versa. But the end goal is actually that the server doesn't have to be the same technology. It can actually do calls like on the client. You just do a method call like you do a normal method call in your code, but actually it's a call to a server, to a service. Here you can basically see what's happening. It's also it's of course via TCP. It says, oh, I want to execute this method, and then the gRPC server will respond with some headers, some data, the response itself, and some headers, which is already a bit different than the normal REST calls, which don't have these ones. A bit of history. In 2001 it started internally at Google and with the name Stubby. They needed to communicate with all their cloud platforms and servers, and they created Stubby. And then in 2008 they released part of the Stubby thing, and they named it protobufs. So protobufs is actually a way to describe the structure of data. And then in 2016, so not so long ago, Google publicly released it, and they renamed Stubby to gRPC, and now everybody can use it open source. They have a lot of support for it. It generates, you have the gRPC spec and you generate code. So for which platforms or which languages can you generate code? All these. I took this image from their website, but it's already, it's outdated because, for example, Swift is also an official supported thing. Maybe to give you an idea of what the alternatives are for gRPC. Of course, everybody knows REST, doing a call, getting a response. Then also GraphQL can maybe be an alternative, where you can, it looks like you're querying a database. You do a query, you get a response. SOAP, if you want to use SOAP nowadays, it's a soup, but yeah. And then there is Apache Drift. I'm not sure if somebody uses it, but it's the most likely almost the same as gRPC, but just a bit different. So part of gRPC is protobufs, defining your API actually. Starts with syntax. It's the version of the protobuf you're using. You can use packages like you can use in all kinds of languages. You can group everything together in separate packages. And then here I defined, as an example, I created a weather info service where you can actually ask, give me the current weather. This is the method call, this is the request, and this is the response. So what is the request? It can be, for example, a postal code. Give me the weather info for this postal code, or a location identifier. So you already see you can define here a one-off. So you can only send one of those two. It defines what is possible or not. And then the message, the response, can be a string, a double, temperature, very dummy booleans. Is it cloudy? Is it rainy? But it can also be another message, for example. So you can nest stuff or reuse stuff. And another possibility is also using an enum, like you have also in code, of course, where you have lots. You can the main thing about protobuf is actually those numbers always. You can say, oh, this looks a bit weird. The number. Why do I have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Of course I can do that, but why can't the software do it? But it's actually for a reason. So here you already see one of the reasons. So how does that object convert to data sending over the line? It's a byte array. Here you can see the field number is used, the type of the property, and then the length of the string, and then how many bytes. So as you can see here, everything is sent over the line, but only the thing that is needed is sent over the line. If you compare that, for example, to talking with JSONs, you send always the name. Also, for example, for a number, you send a lot of data over the line, which is can be a big difference. At least if you want to develop for mobile applications, you as a developer, you're working on your computer, internet is fast, but the end user is using an edge connection, then things can be different. What stuff that you can do if you make an API, the server talks with that talks as that API, and you have a client. Of course, you cannot force update applications. In the App Store, you submit, and eventually it gets updated. End users will maybe not in a month press the update button because they don't want to do it. Then you have to be sure that everything that you change in your proto specs on the server can still be done, and it's not a breaking change. So what is here a breaking change? You can of course add properties. That's also for REST. You can just add add the property. But you can also rename properties. That's different, because here, for example, you made a typo in temperature, no worries, you can just fix it as long as the number stays, the data is sent in the correct way. What you can also do is removing fields unless your code is not checking if there isn't rainy boolean, otherwise it will crash, of course. You can rename even the message of your thing. Adding and removing types is the same way because it's also using numbers. But never ever change the type of a property. So if you change a string to a double, then the byte array will become corrupt and it will not work. It will crash. How can you do versioning? So we already said everything can be packaged. Is like in Dart. You can actually. They say it's best that you have a version number in your package name. For example, here I can create a new version, but the disadvantage is that you then have to implement everything, even if some methods are not updated. So it's maybe better to just add the version number after your method call, and then have multiple versions and running on the same server. Why gRPC is more performant than others, than REST? Yeah, we already talked about it. It's binary data, very small payloads. It's also using HTTP2 by default, while REST is sometimes HTTP2, sometimes HTTP1. And if it really has to go fast, for example, you want to send the position of your pointer, for example, as a mouse, and you want to do every time a new REST call, it will be very slow. While gRPC also supports streaming data, so you can say to the call it accepts this request, but it can accept it multiple times, so the server can receive the same object over and over again. The other way around, the server can also send data over and over again. That's very useful if you create a trading application, for example, like we are doing on the InvestSuite. When the price of Apple stock, for example, changes a lot, it just sends the data over the line, and it got changed. How do you validate your proto specs? Because every developer needs a validation in their CI code, but also on the development machine. You can make if you make things that does not work, it will check it. Buff is a tool. Here is the link that will validate all your proto specs. And then the idea behind gRPC is actually you create one spec and you generate code from it. You can generate code from it, and that code can be used as a client or as a server. So how do you generate code? One simple command. You have to install Proto-C, of course, and then it will generate code. Maybe I can briefly show you how that works. Where are I created a demo project here where I created the proto specs of my weather info service. All right. As you can see here, we all have lots of data, and then I have a command to generate the proto specs. And when we then look at the code, no, not here, it's generated code. doesn't look very nice, but it's there. You don't have to. You don't have to read it. Yeah. But no panic. It will work. Then maybe I can show a very brief tip. We found out now, after some months of coding, that every time you change a property, you add a property or you add a message, there is one identifier that is used in the generated code that in integer number that goes always up and up. I can show you. It's this one, S0. And if you have 100 messages, the one with a Z in it, the last one contains 100. So it means if you add something, all the numbers of all the files are changed, and you have a big merge request that says, oh, you changed a lot of code, and the next time you get merge conflicts. So that's something they don't tell you. But in the end, you can fix it by actually generating the code just from every file at once. Not at once, but every time I list all the files here and generate the code. Also a good one is, for example, I created a separate package for it. So I just created a folder with a pubspec YAML in it. It doesn't have to be a Flutter plugin, it's a Dart plugin. Added these dependencies, and the code will actually generate all these files, and that's also something I generate. And then you can start creating a client that uses this plugin, or a server that uses this plugin. Error handling. How do you do error handling? There is a very limited set of error codes that gRPC is giving you. They say it's enough, but of course, yeah, it's too limited. If you like to have more, there is another way. You can just say your response, for example, that you answer can be or the info that you requested, or it can be an error. And then your error model can be something you define for all your calls the same model, or for every call a specific error, because some it can also be warnings or expected errors. Then to create a gRPC server, that's also possible in Dart. You have to depend on gRPC, and then I also add my reference to the generated code there. This is an example of creating a server. So starting maybe with a button server.create, you define your service is defined here. You can say or use gzip and so on, this port, and okay, that's done. Now you have to implement your methods. So the call that we defined in the protospec is in this class. This is from the generated code. You implement it, and here you can say, okay, just return the weather info with these objects. Very static web server, gRPC server, of course, otherwise not found, or even if I did not implement it, I can also return that. Demo time, small demo time. All right, very briefly, this one, I created a repository. I also shared it on my GitHub account. The server here, for example, it's this one. I think it's almost the same as we saw in the slides. Let's run it. You can run it with, should I run it? Where is my console? Okay. Is it readable? probably not. I can't. Ah, it's here. Okay, so here we are in the server folder. Here in the bin, so here I'm using fem dart run bin / server.dart. Alright, listening. Okay, very small demo. Now we want to we don't want to already start implementing the client and see if it works. And what you do if you implement a REST service, you want to debug it with Postman, for example. Tools to do it is actually, for example, Crea is a tool to do gRPC calls. You define, I want to connect to this server and I have these protofiles. And then it generates you this list. Yeah, you can also pass metadata and so on. And then you can test your call. Okay, let's try if it's working. Our server is still running, of course. This is Crea. Okay, let's do this call. Location ID ABC. Let's do yeah. No. I renamed my folder, of course. Quit. Can I open it again? Yeah. How do you go here to /opt? Just Command L? No. 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 Command what? Ah, it's closed. Okay. I can move it maybe? No. Ah, here. It's this one. Crea config. This one. Let's try it out. Yeah. Okay. Okay, it works. Location not implemented. Now, this one with another one. Okay, not found. That's expected. Our server works as expected. We can start with the client. No, other tools to do it is BloomRPC, which is actually a bit older. Doing the same, but I like Crea more of the advanced options that you have. For example, if you want to authenticate with your with an OAuth service, you can do it. I can even do an It's Me integration in Crea because it was using OAuth at the end. Here they only allow to add metadata, and you have to get the token and add it here. And then Postman also, I think only a year ago, they also added support for gRPC. But I think if you're familiar with Postman and you have an account on it, it's probably the way to go. I did not test it, but all right. Let's do it with the client then. It looks here, okay. What do we have to do here? I created the Dart client just to show that it's also, it don't have to be Flutter. Here you pass the same parameters, same port, local host. Yeah, here it's the example from the website I took here. I will maybe show it here in the code. Client. Okay. So yeah, what's happening here? You actually you instantiate this one. You instantiate first the client channel, then you instantiate this one. This is from the generated code again, and then yeah, you don't have to look at all those weird codes. It's just you can see here the methods are available, and you can just call them with an await. You can also pass some headers if you want, and then show the response. Let's try that out. That's the client Dart. I can also run it here. Here it's doing the call. It's getting the response and then exit. So the client Dart thing is also working. How do you do SSL pinning? Because that's also at least that's when it has to be very secure, like they say. You want to be sure that the certificate that the server is sending is really the correct one. The public key is actually correct. This is also something you can do. You have to define here, for example, you load the certificate. You have to overwrite the channel credentials here, and then pass them also here. And then you have some other options, of course. Insecure is the one I chose now because I'm using localhost. But you can also use just secure, which is the HTTPS, the normal way. And if you really have to do certificate pinning, you can do it like this. It supports multiple certificates at the same time. So for example, if your certificate will be switched in 2 months, you can already deploy an app with the new one in, and it will automatically switch to the new one. That was my demo time. Now you're thinking probably, how does it work on web? Well, it works on web, but you need an envoi proxy or actually a gRPC web proxy. But I think envoi proxy is almost the only one that supports it, which is actually yeah, you have in the beginning you had the call, and the response was sending a metadata, your data, and then the actual response code. And that's something you cannot access in browsers. You can also only access the metadata if it's in front of the data. HTTP2, for example, they thought about, oh, we added, and then browsers said, okay, let's also implement HTTP2, but they did not allow to access them. So it's not possible. What does envoi proxy do is that, and also even if you have very, very old browsers, it can fall back to HTTP 1.1 and it still keeps on working. What is not supported is the bidirectional streaming and also the client-side streaming. So that's not supported because you cannot make it happen on web. What is supporting is the other way around. If the server sends streaming data to the client, that is something that works. If you want to do tests, of course, you want to do tests. There are 2 possibilities. First is the thing I showed you. If you have a protospec and you can just create a Dart server and implement it with mock data. But then you try it out and you say, but during tests it's not possible to access the network. Okay, so how you're going to do that? It's actually with Mocktail. You can. Here's an example of how to mock the response future and the client, and then you can actually say when this call is executed, this has to be returned, and do your tests and so on. So it's possible. Then some gRPC links that are cool or interesting. It's my demo on GitHub. The package that you need to install on the client or on the server. This is the envoy proxy that you need to use, but there is actually, if you check it out, there is if you use Docker Compose, it's only a one-liner to actually run it, and it will spin up the proxy server connecting to opening a port, and your client can connect to it. Also, here I think there are like 300 awesome gRPC URLs on this repository, and then I think 2 days ago Postman also made a blog post about gRPC versus REST, which is really interesting to see. And then I can maybe also share still a demo of what happens when we want to use streaming. No, it does this one. Okay, so I made now I showed you the Dart stuff, and we can also of course do it in Flutter. I made a small demo. Let's first start the server. I always use of course for the server it's best to use macOS build. Very small interface. When again we can, for example here, where is my CREA? Here, now I implemented, for example, a streaming data. Here, I will make it a bit. Can we still see it? Is that so? For example, if you change the data, is cloudy, it will send a new response to CREA. This is an example of a streaming data, and then we can also create a client that uses it. Where is it? Let's try that one. Yeah, okay, no problem. All right, so it's showing data from, what I took is, I looked in the Rive community to a demo of a weather application. So I just implemented it, and okay, it's raining, yes. And it's night. It's night. It's not. So there is a sun, and I can. It's rounded, of course, because nobody wants to. And hello, Flutter. Very small demo. All right. My last slides. Yeah, it's going on. Questions?